Chapter 1 of my fan game Pokemon Void drops in less than a month. So before it does, we're going to rank all 476 custom Pokemon we've ever made. Every line, every fossil, every pseudo, every mythical, legendary, convergent evolution, paradox, even the god Pokemon. To find out once and for all what's the best custom Pokemon we've ever made. And 182nd place goes to the Sedazzle line, a grass fairy type convergent Salazzle that we made all the way back in episode 1. This list is going to be entirely my personal preference, which is going to be difficult because obviously I like every custom Pokemon we've ever made, but I will say that this one is a bit boring, and if I could go back in time, I would definitely give it a different theme where it could only evolve if it was a male, because that would be a lot cooler. 181st is Draclaw, a seemingly intimidating ice dragon that's actually a super ugly blobfish hiding inside. This is definitely one of those ugly on purpose Pokemon that will be declined by most, but adored by few. 180 Arborbolt, who's said to be the fastest sloth alive, which means it actually has the very average speed stat of 82. 179 Lomgull, an ice type that's known to spit frozen liquid at people because they're based on llamas and evil tyrannical kings, which is definitely the type of Pokemon Jesse and James would catch just to be tortured by it all season. 178 is the Drakingdra line, dark dragon type convergent Kingdra who do look awesome, but I had the idea to give them these underwater flames, which again look good, but don't match the typing, which is a big miss on my part. 177, the Jetavian line, a simple early route bird design that in a region this chaotic kind of stand out for being surprisingly normal. 176, Shelfo, the first cosmic type on the list, which are crabs with a UFO theme that I love the concept of, but I'd probably like to redesign them at some point because they have a lot of potential. 175, Chihuahua, an electric chihuahua that constantly shakes with an electric charge, just like how real chihuahuas are always trembling. Again, love this idea, but I'll probably redesign them one day. 174 Heatmor, a convergent Heatmor that instead of eating Durant, teams up with them instead by firing them out of its nose, turning them into bullet ants. 173 Kyujari, the first legendary on our list, who's based on the yokai of despair, Bakekujari. And while I do really like the idea here, the design is a bit much to be a real Pokemon, especially with this exposed bone. Nintendo would not be making this anytime soon. 172 Giganshore, a bug rock type crab based on the rock beaches of Nice, France, making it the first Pokemon from our special French themed episode. And while it's a bit simple, it's actually perfect for our fan game, which needed more rock type, so it made it in. 171 Zeppalin, a pretty basic early route bug design that again stands out in our insane region for being kinda simple. 170 is Nebulite, another legendary Pokemon that serves as the alien overlord of a fire planet and is the counterpart to the ice type Nebulice, who hails from a frozen planet. Cool lore and design, but Nebulice came out first, which means that this one is inherently a bit less unique. 169th place is perfect for Moaimon because it's a total troll with a mega evolution based on handsome Squidward, which makes it the first Pokemon on this list with a mega evolution. And if you're wondering why we designed it this way, I don't really know. 168 is Trogoat, a flying fairy convergent Go-Goat that was said to pull the chariot of Zeus. This was one of the most difficult prompts of the entire series, and while I think it turned out solid, I do wish I had another crack at it. 167 goes to Ceratops, the first fossil Pokemon on the list, which has a fiery volcano-backed Triceratops look. But honestly, the fossil Pokemon in our region are so good that this one gets very overshadowed. You'll see what I mean later in the video. And it also has a mega evolution with a volcano on its back, which may have been done before. 166 is Dracoon, a draconic dune worm legendary that I think would be rated much higher if it had an additional form of some kind. Particularly a corrupted form would be really perfect, but as it is right now, it feels like it's missing something. 165 Crocavour, a cross between a Venus flytrap and a crocodile that will make a great addition to the grunts of any Pokemon evil team. 164 Frankenode, an electric fighting type that only evolves after being hit by 5 electric moves to reflect the lightning strike that brought its inspiration Frankenstein to life. I meant Frankenstein's monster, stop typing that comment. 163 Tuiton, a Pokemon with an insanely cool signature ability that causes every Pokemon on the field, both friend and foe, to mega evolve when it enters battle. Which again, coolest thing ever, but I will say it is very over-designed. It feels more Yu-Gi-Oh! Than Pokemon. 162 is Performafant, a super charming carnival performing elephant, which was actually only the second Pokemon in the whole series to get a corrupted form, making it the first corrupted form on our list. And I think because it was so early, we didn't have as good as grasp on what we wanted to do with corrupted forms at the time, so this one feels a bit off compared to the other corrupted forms that you'll see later in the list. 161 is Snaramid, a ground poison type sand swimming scorpion that has a pyramid themed mega evolution. That's only held back by the fact that we have a lot of cool Egyptian themed Pokemon, and this is probably the most basic out of all of them. And 160 is Gilscore, a water electric type convergent Gliscor that actually feeds on flying type Pokemon by shooting itself out of the water and shocking Wingulls out of the air. And I think the biggest problem with this thing is that regular Gliscor is just so absurdly cool that any new form of it has to be less cool by default. 159 Impactodon, a ghost type fossil Pokemon that was born out of a fragment of the meteor that destroyed all the dinosaur Pokemon long ago. Which again, cool concept and a great name, get it, Impacted On. But the other fossil Pokemon are OP, you'll see soon. 158 Terminaut, a protective guardian of pathways, which has a corrupted form that serves as a mini boss battle required to pass through a route. 157 Yokoshi, a sumo wrestling blue whale that uses its extreme weight to win every contest. And it even has a signature ability that increases the damage of throwing moves. A really fun concept, and another one I would like to redesign one day. 156 goes to Dracarch, wizard-themed Pokemon with the very cool typing of Fairy Dragon, making them another Pokemon I think are only one additional form away from being super high on the list. Like, I think giving them a Mega Evolution would be awesome, especially because this typing doesn't even exist on a regular Pokemon yet. 155 is another Dragon type, but this one is made out of a strawberry. That's right, Scalery is actually an early game Grass type, which makes the powerful Dragon type gained upon evolution a very nice surprise for trainers who take a chance on a Pokemon that's a literal fruit. 154 is Sorowl, an owl Pokemon that constantly keeps its head rotated 180 degrees, which makes it so creepy it even scares away other ghost types. 153 might be the cutest Pokemon on the entire list, Stoutpand, a fairy type convergent Stoutland line, all based on sleepy red pandas. But this next entry is like the complete opposite because Snailicique is a creepy convergent Arbok worm monster. 151 Haggard, a Baba Yaga inspired fairy poison type that's a living potion cauldron and has a mega evolution inspired by Baba Yaga's chicken leg house. And 150 is Gillian, a water type with the ability to armor up and become a water steel type, giving it a new appearance as well as increased defenses at the cost of decreased speed. I love the idea of a Pokemon that crafts its own armor, but on this Pokemon, I don't think it fits super well, so I think I'll end up revisiting that idea sometime in the future. 149 is Psychosaur, which is basically just very intelligent Rampardos. So intelligent, in fact, that it's even theorized they would have built a utopia on Earth if it wasn't for, you know, the meteor. 148 is an absolutely ridiculous Pokemon named Knockyu, a steel-type ram with balled-up metal fists as horns. So believe it or not, it's actually not a Pokemon known for its intelligence and strategy. 147, Pyminko, the flaming flamingo flamenco dancer. Try saying that 3 times fast. 146 is another fire-type Magnaplus, the fire-poison-type platypus monster that's ready to utterly destroy Dr. Doofenshmirtz. 145, Titaurus, a legendary built by humans to be a great protector of their cities until it was hacked and turned into the object of their destruction. Again, cool concept, but a straight-up robot being a Pokemon is a little weird, even if it's something Nintendo has done several times before. 144, Telemetrite, a steel psychic type built by scientists specifically to destroy cosmic types. Again, cool concept, but a straight-up robot being a Pokemon is a little weird, even... Wait, I just said this. 143, Bagchi, a possessed boxing heavy bag that absorbed all the trauma the bag went through being punched by athletes, which turned it into a vengeful spirit with a mean right hook. 142, Airborus, another machine Pokemon who's actually responsible for hacking Titaurus and has a really cool design with these unknown all over it, making it feel a bit less like a straight-up robot. 141's Fawcett, an Egyptian-themed cat Pokemon who was worshipped as a minor god in ancient times, probably because of its mega evolution, who has hair inspired by the patterns on Cosmog's body. And 140 will go to Pluma, the fire dark type Puma, who uses its pale blue lantern to guide lost travelers out of the jungle at night. 139 is Chrysliquin, a Harlequin-inspired moth that distracts foes with party tricks before instantly ending them. And yes, of course, we gave it a shiny inspired by Harley Quinn. 138 will go to Torchos, a convergent Tauros inspired by a bronze bull, which is definitely one of the most disturbing bases for a design on the list so far. Keyword being so far because it's actually not the only Pokemon in our region to be based off an ancient torture method. 137 is Festaflare, a Chinese lantern ghost type with a signature ability that forces every Pokemon on the field to share share its stat boost with every other Pokemon on the field. And it's hard to tell if that would make it super overpowered or super underpowered, but I guess we'll see. 136 is Stegosled, a fossil Pokemon that loves to destroy other fossil Pokemon with its sledgehammer-like tail. Kinda messed up when you think about it. 135 is Carmelon, the Karma Chameleon Pokemon that has 3 different forms based on its current friendship level, making it a reference to not only an addictive song, but the concept of karma itself. 134 is Shu Trio, a convergent Doug Trio that's based on a hidden army of bamboo. And a convergent Doug Trio was always going to be difficult considering most of their bodies have never been seen before. And I think this turned out perfect, but thank Arceus, we didn't get the flying type. 133 is Paptoid, the first of many Pokemon with a split evolution on this list, as it's a bug type based on a parasite infecting the Applin line. 132 goes to the first Paradox Pokemon on the list, Searing Maw, which is a terrifying fire-type version of the usually adorable Snog. 131st is Clobbit, a cosmic fighting type who attacks by using its gravitational pull to sling comets around itself like a fist. And it was actually the first Pokemon drawn by Devesa Illustrations, who would go on to make some of the most iconic custom Pokemon of the entire series. And they also recently started their own YouTube, so go check them out after this. And 130 goes to Condor, a member of my favorite legendary trio in the series, the Stone Hats. However, while the trio is amazing, this is clearly the least interesting member, so it finds itself this low. 129 is Dracavern, a super epic water dragon type starter Pokemon, making it the first starter Pokemon on the list. And I bet a lot of you think this should be higher, but looking back, the design turned out almost too cool to be a starter Pokemon, and is honestly closer to a pseudo-legendary, so I am gonna knock off points for that. 128 is Cindu Lava, another fire-type fossil, who curls up in a ball before hurling itself down mountains towards foes. And its corrupted form is instead a giant meteor hurling towards Earth. 127 is Gorgaze, a Medusa-inspired jellyfish that can turn foes to stone with its hidden eye. An eye which is constantly forced open in its Mega Evolution, as it now turns anything that gets near it into a permanent statue. 126 goes to the first Ultra Beast on this list, a power level that we've actually gotten staggeringly few of. Its name is Orbasho, and it's a sumo wrestling planet that traps rocks in its gravity to use as limbs. 125 is Cloacoom, a legendary Pokemon who's completely unserious, because it's based on a giant screaming chicken and has a signature move that deals more damage the louder you scream into your device's microphone when the move is used. And I just love to imagine a world where this Pokemon is competitively viable, and pro players are just going back and forth screaming at each other every turn for max damage. 124 is Stabsalute, a convergent evolution of a ground steel type Absol, who we also gave a convergent pre-evolution. I've always thought this Pokemon was super underrated. People didn't really respond well to it at the time, but I think it came out sick. 123 Clampster, another convergent, this one being a grass bug type Cloyster based on a fly inside of a Venus fly trap. And I think we deserve big points for making that typing work, by the way. Like a bug grass type Cloyster, that is the epitome of the randomness this series can produce. 122nd is Malmot, the marmot who loves picking fights and is in a constant state of starting beef with every Pokemon it sees. And it even has a corrupted form that's been tasked by the distant evil cosmic legendary to warp from planet to planet and take on their strongest warrior. I think this is one of the better Pokemon from the super old episode, and because it's pretty basic and has a corrupted form, it was perfect for the early game of Pokemon Void, so it made it in. 121st Skyq, a convergent Ice Q, which was never going to be easy, but making it a bird with a birdhouse head was the perfect idea. And 120 goes to Floor Phantom, an alien-inspired grass electric type starter Pokemon that was almost the official grass type starter for Void. But we ended up deciding we wanted it to be a Pokemon that represented Earth to make the trio more cohesive. But it's still a great design, so maybe it can still make it into the game, but repurposed as a mid or late game grass type. 119 is Releon, a black and white movie-inspired film reel chameleon. A crazy idea that only gets crazier with its corrupted form, which is based on the alien from the movie Alien, that's also projecting an image of the distant evil cosmic legendary itself, as it's one of the few creatures that have actually seen it, making it perfect for a mid-game boss fight that teases the big bad you'll have to face later. 118 is Nebulize, the original alien warlord that's just begging to be a part of an epic side quest. 117 is Inflatuft, a lifeguard-themed meerkat, who makes it this high particularly because the meerkat cat is my favorite animal. And the fact that it's in Pokemon Void with a new signature ability that lets it save other Pokemon by not letting them drop below 1 HP, which is perfect for its lifeguard flavoring. 116 is the first future Paradox Mon on this list, Iron Champion, who's also the only Paradox Pokemon to ever be based on another custom Pokemon who you'll see later. 115 is another Ultra Beast, Trapnid, who uses its razor-sharp spider webs to lay traps for foes. Kinda like that one villain from Demon Slayer who, fun fact, I actually didn't even know existed while making this Pokemon. 114 is Boysian, a toxic bison with a scorpion tail. And while I don't exactly love its design as much as some of the Pokemon in this part of the list, I am giving it a huge boost for being the ace Pokemon of Pokemon Void's first gym leader, which is going to help it be way more iconic. 113 is the first ever Pokemon to get a Mega Evolution in the series, Obolite, who I actually really like, but we have so many good rock types kinda similar to it that it finds itself in more of this middle zone. I'm just starting to realize we have a lot of grass-type convergent evolutions, because 112 is Chimaka, a Maraka-themed grass-type convergent Chimecho, with a super cool signature ability where it attacks twice, but always has recoil, as the two heads are constantly beefing with each other. 111 is Foilaflage, the stick-bug sniper, who I think is just so cool. Like, the built-in ghillie suit theme and everything really turned what should be a basic Pokemon, I mean, bug grass is pretty boring to say the least, into a surprisingly intriguing design. And 110 is Destillo, the future-seeing armadillo, who floats aimlessly through space, pondering the orb in its tail, and has a signature mechanic where in-game it will warn the player about nearby corrupted forms, which is the exact type of little hidden detail that I always love to see in Pokemon games. 109 is another Pokemon from our special French-themed episode, Voltisa, who's based on the iconic Eiffel Tower. And this, along with the rock crab from earlier, both made it into my fan-made game, making us kind of an honorary French region, despite Pokemon Void's region actually being based on the American South. 108 is Insectune, who was the first Ultra Beast we ever made, and based on a totem pole, with a body composed of 3 different sections, each with their own personality. 107 Ferroshell, a water steel type convergent Ferroseed with another interesting ability, as it gains bonus damage based on the monetary value of the pearl item it's holding, making it the perfect partner for the rich and powerful. A lot of convergence on this part of the list, which makes sense because they're innately a little unoriginal, but 106 Crabully is a ground-type boxing Cradilly, which pretends to be pottery to lure in thieves and bash their heads in, and is also the only convergent of a fossil Pokemon we've ever made. 105 will be the first pseudo-legendary on the list, Breathorn, a Rose-Thorn duelist who actually has the same signature ability as Aegislash, Stance Chain. And while that is really cool, I will say it is a bit odd to have a pseudo-legendary that changes forms mid-battle. We've never seen anything like that before. 104 is the first of a handful of ghost-type possessing objects Pokemon we've made, Grimoire, a ghost psychic type that's possessed a spell book. And 103 is the highest rated Ultra Beast in the whole video, Levialost, a giant dragon head, which is based on Nowhere from Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's also the first Pokemon in this video to have received a member modifier, as we gave it this crazy Gigantamax form, which sees its lost Draconic body return. 102 is Collapsor, the Collapse Star Pokemon, who does have a pretty basic design, which I actually think makes it the perfect introduction to the Cosmic type. Like, if somebody asked me what Cosmic types look like, I would show them this. 101 is Polizar, an Ice-type fossil Pokemon that we made purely offensive, because for some reason, all the real Pokemon that are Rock Ice-type are made to be defensive, which doesn't match the typing at all. Rock and Ice-type has like 1,000 weaknesses. And 100 is actually a Pokemon from the most recent episode, Draydene, a Bug-type leech completely based around the move Life Leech. It even has a new Ravenous form, which it turns into after landing Leech Life 3 times. And bringing us into the top 100 custom Pokemon is Crawling Creep, who's one of my favorite little joke designs, as it's a past Paradox Ambipom that flips itself upside down in order to resemble a spider and scare away prehistoric foes. 98 is a Pokemon with a really cool real-world inspiration, because Draculot is based on a Dracula parrot, which look absolutely insane. This bird has so much aura, it's ridiculous, and I really hope that one day we get a real Pokemon based on it. 97, another one from the most recent episode, Pictogrog, a fossil that uses its brush-like hair to make cave paintings and additional forms, as it has an attack, speed, and defense form based on a woolly mammoth, T-Rex, and a pterodactyl. 96 is Glutarch, a grubbing grub with mind control powers, which it uses to force others to bring it more food, and it has a corrupted form, which is being being used by the distant evil cosmic legendary to build a mind-controlled army of Pokemon for its impending arrival. And yes, it's based on Thanos. 95 is Borealis, an ice-type polar bear with an Aurora Borealis mane. And in a region so full of absolutely absurd creatures, I think this is the perfect balance of being super unique but realistic enough to actually be a real Pokemon, which is why it finds itself pretty much smack dab in the middle of this list. 94 is Ditch Doll, a voodoo doll who once shared a collective soul with all the Pokemon of its species, but upon pulling out the needle from its chest, became soulless. 93 is Mammotuft, a long-haired ancient sloth fossil Pokemon with a very depressing backstory. As while the original is super friendly, it has a corrupted form that was wound up in its own hair like a straitjacket as a cruel punishment by the distant evil cosmic legendary. Yes, I'm going to say its full name every time. 92 is Bear Bat, a fruit bat that has a different evolution based on the type of berry it eats, which gives it so many evolutions to the point where it might actually be too much. Foreshadowing, foreshadowing, foreshadowing. 91 is Iron Wool, a future Paradox Marine, which is known to protect the large generators that power the high-technology world of the distant future. Again, another very difficult prompt that I think we did super well. I mean, a future Paradox Dragon-type Mareep, that could have easily been way too much, but I think we actually nailed it here. And 90 goes to Zang Viper, a fusion of Zangoose and Seviper that was once a terrifying monster, but was cut in half by a brave hero, turning it into the two Pokemon we see today. And it's also received a member modifier nod with a new Mega Evolution that becomes doubled, so good luck cutting it in half now, hero. 89 is Hurricana, another very old custom Pokemon that I think aged very well, as being made out of pure swirling air is actually a really fun and unique way to do a flying type, especially when like 99% of them are just birds. 88 is Enchantine, a convergent Mantine based on a flying carpet. And just like how Mantine teams up with Remoraid, Enchantine teams up with Aipom as a reference to Aladdin, which is so fun, and this might be the most whimsical custom Pokemon of them all. 87 is Capybaran, which is actually the official Pikachu clone of our region, which of course means it's also going to be in Void. And I expect it to be on a lot of teams because not only is its typing super unique, being electric ice, but it's also a capybara. I mean, who can resist? 86 is Voowool, the second voodoo doll inspired Pokemon we've made, as this convergent double is a cross between a voodoo doll and a pincushion. But what really puts it ahead of a lot of the other convergents on this list is what happens when it's hit 4 times, as it becomes this demonic unleashed form, which is such a departure from the original double, it's actually kind of hilarious. Like, this used to be an early route mammal. What's going on? 85 is Oblivion, our cosmic type evolution. Now, this actually isn't going to be in Void because we aren't going to have any real Pokemon in it, so an evolution wouldn't really work because there's no Eevee, but it's still a super fun idea, especially with this corrupted form, which has a split open alien head. Definitely not something you're going to see in a real game anytime soon. 84 is Scrampy, a jellyfish convergent Scraggy, which also has a Mega Evolution. And we made this before Pokemon Legends ZA announced regular Mega Scraggy, so in a way, the wheels kind of predicted that. 83 is Totomic, a termite that's extremely fast and loves using its wood-eating abilities to turn forest trees into intricate totem poles. And it has a Mega Evolution that shows off its masterful work. And I know that the Pokemon itself is rated in the middle, but I will say, out of all the Mega Evolutions, this is one of my favorites. 82 is Peanut, the Peanut Knight. I love how its entire body is actually full of a bunch of smaller peanut creatures. It gives it a ton of personality while also being traditionally cool, and that's why it also made it into Pokemon Void's early game. 81 is Idol, a UFO legendary that you might recognize because it's supposed to look like Claydol, who according to the Pokedex was created by aliens, with Idol being the ancient alien responsible, giving it a super fun connective lore. And 80th place belongs to Nosfang, the first mythical Pokemon on the list and the only mythical in the entire series to have an evolution. Now obviously this design is super slick, but with wheel results that overpowered, I kind of wish I had another go at this because we'll probably never see those wheel results again, so I wish I made an all-time great custom Pokemon with it. 79 is Rockwild, the pet rock pet Pokemon. I think this is the perfect joke Pokemon because it's stupid but in a fun way and low-key adorable, with the added bonus of a Mega Evolution that gives it the fire type, which means yes, it's also in Pokemon Void's early game. 78 is Iron Needles, a future Paradox version of one of my favorite real Pokemon of all time, Cacturn. And being connected to one of my favorite Pokemon definitely gave it a lot of bonus points, but this Iron Man inspired missile shooting drill design definitely didn't hurt either. 77 is Glaciera, a dragon ice type from one of the earliest episodes, who was the recipient of the first ever additional form X Factor. Factor, which gave it this flying form based on the kaiju Gamera. 76 is Dodriode, a convergent Dodrio that's based on another kaiju, King Ghidorah, turning this once measly normal flying type that doesn't even fly into a mighty electric dragon beast. And remember this one because it actually comes up later, but not in the way that you expect. 75 is another electric type, Mir, which is also based on a meerkat, but come on, it's my favorite animal of all time. I had to do it twice, and I wouldn't be ashamed to do it a third time either. And it also has a split evolution based on its gender, with a form that focuses on punches or a form that focuses on kicks, making it another relic of the past when our split evolutions were pretty straightforward. 74 is Forix, an extremely large grass electric legendary that once protected an ancient forest kingdom, but in the modern age has been turned into a twisted, corrupted form who constantly pools with a nature-destroying toxin. 73 goes to a Pokemon with a very interesting evolution mechanic, Fridia, as its electric fire typing is based on a malfunctioning machine that will evolve into the broken Scramblaze if left in its poor condition. However, if repaired through a special in-game NPC, it evolves into a much more put-together Pokemon, Searker, which compared to Mirtz is a great example of how complicated our split evolutions have got. 72 is Orcade, the legendary that was the basis for Iron Champion, the future Paradox we saw earlier, who has the really cool lore of once being the commander of an Atlantean army that was sealed away for being too violent, but after an earthquake freed it from its ancient chamber, it's ready to take revenge. Another story that's just begging to be turned into a late-game side quest. 71 is Frostfire, the first ever convergent evolution made for the series, which turns the Yeti-inspired Electivire into much more of a literal Yeti. I've always loved this line because the typing just worked out so perfect with the Electabuzz line's pre-existing theme, and the animator Martin Sorensen made this animation for the line, and seeing it in action made me love it that much more. And 70 goes to Thundaton, an electric convergent Tinkaton who no longer makes its hammer out of the corpses of Corviknight, but instead attacks and traps Dodriode inside its hammer, giving it this insane mega evolution that features Dodriode bursting out of its hammer and gifting it with the dragon typing, while also serving as a really cool way to give it an in-universe connection. Funny number goes to Lazuka, the grass-type sloth who grows its own explosive pine cone that it then fires out of a self-made tree trunk bazooka. But the main reason it's this high is its mega evolution, another gift from the member modifier that gives it its own self-made tank. 68 goes to Grantula, another very vintage custom Pokemon who's based on a scary spider and a wholesome grandmother, which knits cute little sweaters out of spider silk. And a lot of people said this was the first bug type they'd actually consider putting on their team, which is actually a super big compliment, so we had to put it in Void's early game too. New funny number belongs to Frignix, who's a fire ice type starter Pokemon. And with typing that paradoxical, it was always going to be difficult to come up with an interesting theme that worked. But this constantly melting and refreezing Phoenix design turned out perfect. And the only thing that holds it back from being higher on this list is the fact that the official fire type starter is so good and so loved by you all that it instantly outshines every other fire starter we could make. 66 is Blightato, a zombie potato plant, which gets huge points for not only being a great early game grass type thanks to its interesting but rooted design that leaves room for a really cool signature ability, but it also went perfect with our first town's theme because it's based on a farming town, so putting the potato Pokemon there was a no-brainer. 65 is another great example of how random this series can get, and its name is Iron Fridge, a future Paradox Ice-type Garbodor. I know a lot of people hate Garbodor, but I love how this thing turned out. It's the exact type of wacky only this series can produce. 64 is Duckling, the ugly duckling Pokemon. This Pokemon marks the point in the series where we started giving our split evolutions more interesting themes, as Duckling evolves into either an ugly swan if it has low friendship, or a beautiful grass-type swan if it has high friendship. 63 is Accurate, a truly villainous Pokemon who serves as the antagonist of one of my favorite custom Pokemon ever, which we'll see a bit later in this video, because Accurage's corrupted form faced it in a truly epic battle. 62nd place might be surprising, it's Psychonide, and this was actually the first ever Pokemon to be the regular power level and have no evolution, which is why it was really special to me when it was so well received by all of you, because it showed that we were accomplishing the core idea of the series, which is to try and make every single custom Pokemon that we make for you all over the top and awesome no matter what the wheels have to say about it. 61 has a really cool signature ability because Octrosity is an octopus that lives in quicksand and has an ability that gives it bonus damage based on the speed stat of the opponent, because the more you move in quicksand, the faster you'll sink. And 60 goes to a third chameleon-based Pokemon, Camolon, who comes in 3 different forms who each have very specific and varied battle strategies, but it also starts out the battle in this completely obscured state, forcing the opponent to guess which strategy you're going for. And while I think this would make it one of the most high-skill, high-reward competitive Pokemon ever, it's probably a bit too complex for a regular playthrough, so it couldn't make it too high. 59 is the legendary Camolanche, who was the first Pokemon ever to receive a corrupted form. And it's crazy to think that all the way back then, the legendary Pokemon really didn't have any lore, and the evil force responsible for corrupted forms was completely ambiguous. But of course today, it's a fully fleshed out villain that's about to be part of an entire game. 58 is 2 Pokemon who have to go together, Plusle and Minus, a convergent Plusle and Minun based on the Angel and Devil on your shoulder motif, who both have Mega Evolution. And while I think individually they might not be ranked this high, the fact they go together makes them both a lot cooler. 57 is a fossil Pokemon with a split evolution, Inventus, who was an extremely intelligent inventor whose brains were wasted in the ancient past when there was nothing to work with. However, in the modern age, it's able to craft its own evolutions when given one of 3 blueprints. And this is truly when the fossil Pokemon in this series start getting really good. 56, Elasmochin, is another water-type starter with a super developed design. But unlike Cavern, I think this one is a lot more realistic, and I could definitely see it making it into Void as some sort of late-game water type that also appeared in the Evil Team's party. 55, Grizzlon, is a big lawn art-inspired bear that makes for another absolutely perfect early-game grass type, but with the added bonus of an additional form it gains at low HP, as a reference to when lawn art is left unkempt. And I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up on like half of y'all's teams, just because that first stage is so adorable you couldn't help but catch it. 54 is the first convergent of a legendary Pokemon we've got, as Chi-Ching is a water steel type Chi-Yu based on a gold coin, and it even has an additional form that you get from collecting more than 1 Chi-Ching, causing them to become this huge dragon. 53 is another ghost possessing object Pokemon, Vanatone, the possessed mirror who traps the souls of people who stare at it too long. But the real reason it makes it this high is its Mega Evolution, who breaks its glass and gains the ability to have its ghostly limbs appear wherever a glass shard lies. But Vanatone might want to stay away from number 52, because Cherubius is a giant soul-eating anglerfish that pulls ghost types in with its hypnotizing lantern. And it's the first Pokemon on this list to have a Gigantamax form, a very rare mechanic in our region. We've barely gotten any so far, so it definitely gets big points for that. Make it 3 ghost types in a row, because 51 is a Malgaton, a ghostly rabbit monster made of dust, which is not only fun because it's a dust bunny literally, but I really like its evolution method, as it only evolves by having a party full of its pre-evolution, further playing into that dust clumping together theme. And 50 goes to a Pokemon without a name. It's known as C198, and we introduced it with a really cinematic section based on an SCP research log. And if you thought that couldn't get any cooler, it also has a Mega Evolution courtesy of the member modifier. First Pokemon inside the top 50 is Gorlax, a more ruthless and feral grass convergent Snorlax, continuing that grass type convergent trend. But fun fact, this was also made way before Mosslax was ever revealed, so the wheels predicted another future Pokemon. And while the design is super classic, it also has a Gigantamax form, which mirrors Snorlax's G-Max, but a lot more ferocious. 48 is Grimazos, the Plague Doctor poison flying type, which serves as our game's regional bird. A super important Pokemon that I think this is perfect for, especially considering its signature ability that spreads poison to every Pokemon on the field. 47 is Tezaguar, a ghost fire type Jaguar based on an Aztec god, who is said to be very powerful but bring terrible fortune to trainers who use it. With it even being said, if you use its Mega Evolution, you've all but guaranteed your demise. 46 is Jagged Tooth, a past Paradox Torracat, which was actually the first Paradox form we ever made, and mostly makes it this high on the list because it righted a great wrong in Incineroar being on 2 legs. 45 goes to Mutimp, a mythical Pokemon based on alchemy that comes in 3 different forms, who can mix together to make different combination forms based on which 2 forms of Mutimp combine together. A super unique mechanic that got even better with the member modifier, which gave it this ultimate form that occurs when you combine all 3. Again, absolutely insane mechanic, but I couldn't put it too high because, again, like a lot of things in this region, it's a bit complicated. 44 goes to Magmolt, a giant firebug type lava larva monster that I think is so sick. Like, this is about as cool as a 3-stage bug can get. It looks like it's straight out of a kaiju movie or something. 43 is Nosfang, an ice type bat with a built-in demon mask that's plenty cool. But how it really earned its placement is is this Mega Evolution, which has this insane fanged mask. 42 goes to Overgast, a pseudo-legendary villain Pokemon based on Stormcloud, who maybe doesn't feel too much like a pseudo, but with a corrupted form this insane, it had to make the top 50. 41, Mazatuna, a ghost-type legendary that is said to be in charge of carrying souls from this world to the afterlife. In fact, it's even believed to be the origin of the ghost type itself, as legend states that some souls escape its grasp and return to the world now as spirit Pokemon. And if it can't get any better, it also has this soul-eating Hydra corrupted form. And 40 belongs to Ghoulrilla, a terrifying ape based on howler monkeys. I'm gonna go ahead and say these are the scariest Pokemon we've ever made. Like, imagine actually running into this thing in the jungle at night. I'm good. 39th place is two other connected Pokemon, Shalamp and Carabash, a convergent Shelmet that we just had to combine with a convergent Carablast. And they actually have the same theme as the original duo, as Carabash evolves after being traded with Shalamp, turning its golden lamp into a razor-sharp armor, while Shalamp becomes freed from its lamp and now resembles a mighty genie. 38 is Glimmergate, a fairy steel-type Iron Maiden that hides its soul in its cage-like body. I think people will be split on this design as it's just so unique, but I personally think it's extremely intriguing, and at the very least, we can all agree its corrupted form, which sees its soul become alive and go on the offensive, is awesome. 37 is Mistjack, a very simple fire psychic type that makes it this high on the list for one sole reason. That being that Martin Sorensen also made a fully animated section for it in the episode in which it was released, which was actually the best thing ever. Like, this is my dream. I hope that one day every single custom Pokemon is revealed this way. 36 goes to Magcargo, a convergent Magcargo who's entirely made of a sticky tar, making it constantly stick to the ground, which would make it extremely slow, but by giving it a car tire to constantly spin underneath itself, it became one of the fastest Pokemon ever. As I'm sure you can tell by now, I'm a big fan of the silly Pokemon that also end up with pretty cool designs, which Magcargo definitely achieves with its monster truck-themed Mega Evolution. That was another much-needed member modifier. 35 is Dractical, another Dracula Pokemon, but it's not my fault. There's a squid called a vampire squid that is just begging to be turned into a Pokemon. And this design is way too cool to not make it high on this list. It is in desperate need of a Mega Evolution or something, because that would put it instantly in the top 20. 34 goes to another basic Pokemon, DaDrake, who's based on a piece of driftwood, as well as the Loch Ness Monster, who has a famous picture of itself, which is probably just driftwood. I see DaDrake as our region's Tropius, a low-key banger that's not trying too hard and has the chance to be a fan favorite, especially with a corrupted form that's also fairly grounded, but just as deadly as the rest. 33 will be Renihilate, a rhino beetle that serves as Pokemon Void's early game bug. Early game bugs are pretty much always pretty forgettable and weak, but not this thing. In fact, it's such a stark contrast from the designs of other early game bugs that I bet a lot of trainers who have never caught an early game bug before will use this one. 32 goes to Sarashox, an electric type fossil Pokemon based on a Triceratops with lightning bolt horns. And it was actually the first ever recipient of a Gigantamax form, which gave it this huge lightning absorbing funnel that it uses to power its sky-shaking attack. Number 31 is Hydropult, a convergent Dragapult based on a shark who, instead of teaming up with its pre-evolution, uses a set of Remoraid as Hydro Blasters. And this switch up on a pseudo-legendary dynamic only gets crazier with its Mega Evolution, which causes the Remoraid to evolve and become Trigunned Octillery. But the top 30 is where it starts to get really good, because Paimon is a fire-type wolf with a split evolution based on its nature, either resulting in the happy-go-lucky Gleeruption or the depressed Squirrel. And if that's where it ended, it wouldn't be up this high, but from here you can actually combine the two separate wolves into a third stage named Cerbament, who's a perfect combination of all the wolves' emotions. And if it couldn't get any better, it also has a Mega Evolution. Yeah, this thing is stacked. 29 is Gingalaxy, a cosmic rock-type convergent Gengar based on an apocalyptic meteor. And these colors, the typing, the coolness of regular Gengar, all combine into such an amazing creature that, guess what, also has a Mega Evolution. 28 is Tragipir, who is firing on all cylinders. First off, it's a pseudo-legendary. It's also based on a Japanese monster, the Baku. But best of all, it's a Tapir. Who couldn't love this thing? 27 is Warpture, which is a bug-type legendary, something that doesn't even exist in real Pokemon right now. And it's also the only legendary Pokemon we've ever gotten in the series to evolve twice. And this is all without mentioning its reality-tearing apple core monstrosity design fitting for the cover of its own game. Maybe Pokemon Apple and Banana? 26 is Recraft, who serves as Pokemon Void's early game mammal. And if there's any Pokemon Pokemon that shows off just how hard we are going with this game, it's Recraft. It's literally the early game normal type, which are exclusively some of the most regular and not exciting Pokemon in every deck. But Recraft uses trash to build its own superhero costume, giving it a fun theme and 3 split evolutions based on different superpowers. Which again, I just think shows if we care enough to make the early game mammal great, then imagine what we're gonna do with the rest of the game. 25 is Codonut, the official water type starter of Pokemon Void, who's actually water normal type, which maybe sounds a little lame at first, but don't forget the normal type is actually super effective against the cosmic type, and I expect plenty of trainers to pick up Cubble. 24 is Darmagoyle, a rock type convergent Darmanitan based on a gargoyle, which is epic enough, but its corrupted form is actually part of a very cinematic story we told in the episode it was released in that you need to see. Like, it might seriously be the best individual section a custom Pokemon's ever got. 23 is Quincata, a ground poison type that I think has the best inspiration for that typing humanly possible, because it's based on the Terracotta Warriors, some of whom were surrounded by a poisonous mercury preventing them from being studied. And when you combine that with its Mega Evolution, it's a no-brainer it's in the top 30. Speaking of ground types with Mega Evolutions, 22nd goes to Ruffling, who's based on Ground Owls and not only has a split evolution based on gender, but both of its split evolutions have Mega Evolution, which was crazy RNG. Still to this day, I think that is the luckiest anyone's ever gotten on the wheel. 21 is Armadisco, the Fairy Steel type armadillo that curls up into a disco ball. What I love most about this one is it gave me the chance to make a super random disco dance segment in an episode to introduce it, which was so fun. And this Pokemon became such a fan favorite that we even gave it a Mega Evolution just for fun. Bringing us into the top 20 is Mew. Yes, this is a normal cosmic type convergent Mew based on a cat. And if you think that's ridiculous, you might want to turn around while I show off Mew too. Yeah, this is what we did with the opportunity to make a convergent Mew. I regret nothing. 19 will be Subnaw, water type based on Subnautica with a split evolution based on all the Leviathans found in the game. It even has a Gigantamax form based on the Gargantuan Leviathan mob. And as someone who loves and deeply fears Subnautica, this was instantly one of my favorites of all time the very second we released it. 18 is Iron Wish, the highest rated Paradox form on the list, which isn't too surprising considering it's a mythical Pokemon, but what really got it this high was its backstory, which is one of the more deep and tragic ones of the whole series. Finally, another member of the Stone Hat Trio, Pandor is the original founder and leader of the group. It's something straight out of Kung Fu Panda and is absolutely swimming in aura. 16 is Hydrasic, a Hydra fossil Pokemon. That's actually an amalgamation of 3 unknown fossils, as it's based on the real-life Fossil Wars, where scientists were combining different fossils together and claiming them to be a new discovery. And that clever theme continues with its Mega Evolution, which even sprouts 2 more heads, as well as a signature ability that gives it the stab attacking bonus when using a Rock, Ice, Water, Fire, Electric, Grass, or Dragon type move. 15 goes to Tapoche, a tadpole that loves to sing, and has a split evolution based on the pitch of note its trainer sings into their microphone when it's attempting to evolve. A Pokemon that forces you to sing to evolve that has 5 evolutions and a Gigantamax form, we are definitely reaching peak absurdity. 14 is Capsakito, another absolutely banger fossil Pokemon. That's a giant golem made of pure amber, piloted by an encased mosquito within. And its Mega Evolution has decked itself out in fossil armor, making what should be a super weak bug type into a prehistoric warrior. 13 is Hydrina, which is the highest rated custom Pokemon from the earliest days of the series. Because while its design is fairly straightforward, it's also super easy to read, fun, and fits its typing perfectly, meaning it was a no-brainer to be an early game water type in Void, especially when we gave it this corrupted form, where the fishbone-like spines on its body come alive and take over the whole creature. 12th place is Galilidai, the official fire type starter of Void. This was an instant hit with all of you, and in a way, I almost regret how well received this Pokemon turned out. I feel a bit like Nintendo when they made Charizard. It's just so clear that most people will pick this starter that I kind of want to nerf it. Of course, I'm not going to. I'm just saying it speaks to how sick this Trail of Cosmic Fire Ferret turned out, and I would even consider that. Just outside the top 10 is Palizard, and talk about a clean design. It's hard to describe, but to me, this is the perfect, just straight up Pokemon. Clean design, easy to read, cool enough to be intimidating, but cute enough to be a best pal, Azard. Oh yeah, and its sun-absorbing Mega Evolution doesn't hurt either. Number 10 is Exogross, the highest rated Convergent Evolution on the list, and for good reason. It's a strange typing for such a well-regarded and iconic Pokemon, but this crab motif really just works. And its corrupted form form being one of the first ever to actually expand the lore of the Distant Evil Cosmic Legendary made it so much better. Ninth place is Twi'leken. Just like Palazar, this design to me is just utterly perfect. But what really sets it apart is its typing. If you didn't know, we recently announced that the Light type is also going to be a new type in Void, which means that while Twi'leken was originally a pure Dark type, we decided to make it a Dark Light type, a paradoxical combination that makes for such an interesting Pokemon that we also made it the ace partner of a very important character in the game. Number 8 is Slowthor, the highest rated fossil on the list. Look, y'all, this is exactly my preference in Pokemon design. At the core of my being, I don't want anything more than a sick rock-type monster who looks straight out of a Godzilla movie. That is truly all I want, and this is that. It even has a Mega Evolution that takes all those aspects to the next level, so of course, in my personal list, this is gonna be top 10. But 7th place is Carvgoyle. Remember what I just said? Well, what if instead of just one insane rock-type monster, it was a mythical rock dragon type that had the ability to absorb power from great French architecture and turn into 5 different kaiju forms. Oh yeah, and then what if it had one of the most expanded on backstories in the entire series? That's Carvgoyle, so of course it's this high. 6th place belongs to Magnawolf, the highest rated pseudo-legendary on the list, which also means it's the official pseudo-legendary of Pokemon Void. Magnawolf is a cosmic dark type wolf with a constantly swirling cosmic pull around it, and in a group of Pokemon as cool as the pseudo-legendaries, I still think this stands out as easily the best, or at least most unique, especially when you consider its black hole themed Mega Evolution that completely changes up its color palette and makes it look like reality is breaking around it. And the first member of the top 5 custom Pokemon ever is Silantis. Silantis is simply a really cool dragon. Yeah, it's got lore about how it used to be a cosmic type and fell from space, landing in Earth's oceans, forcing it to become a damaged water type. But what's really important is it's a really awesome dragon type Pokemon. Like, name your top 5 favorite Pokemon right now. You're telling me that not one of them is just a really cool dragon? I thought so. Number 4 is Finroar, the final member of the Stone Hat Trio and the highest rated legendary on the list. Finroar is the first Pokemon I decided to give a genuinely fleshed out backstory, and you all love that so much that we've done it several times since. But it's always hard to beat the original, and Finroar's story of betrayal coupled with a great design and an alternate villainous form means it had to make it super high. But number 3 is hard to beat because it's the first God Pokemon on the list. Hailing from the newest episode, this Pokemon has no name, at least not yet. It's the primordial of the Light type, and just like Finroar, it has a very fleshed out backstory that not only explains the entire formation of the Pokemon universe and the creation of Mega Evolution, but the motivation for the Distant Evil Cosmic Legendary as well. And I guess this is as good a time as any to reveal its primordial form, which is the original look of the Pokemon, a swirling entity of pure light and Mega Evolution orbs. But number 2 is Sedimite. If you're watching this video, you know Sedimite is a rock type with a different evolution based on what stone you placed in its chest, with all its evolutions being based on different D&D classes. At first, it had 3 evolutions, but you all wanted more, so we kept adding them at your request until we did one for every stone. But you all still wanted more, so we gave it a Mega Evolution, a Gigantamax, an entire corrupted line. I'm not even going to bring up the food type evolution you had me do. But I think the real best way to summarize the popularity of Sedimite is with a quick story. So in the process of making Pokemon Void, we've been outsourcing some of the sprite work. Basically, we've just been commissioning artists to make some of the sprites for the games, like for the tile sets or individual Pokemon, their front sprite, their back sprite. And there's one artist who I'm not going to name, but when we first reached out to them, we were like, you know, this is for the YouTuber Pokedex Fillers and his fan-made game. And they had no idea who I was, but they thought the project was cool, so they've been doing some stuff for it. And we're sending them a bunch of stuff, a bunch of Pokemon from the series, corrupted forms were like the most signature mechanic of my videos, and they're like, oh, you know, I've never heard of these before, but that's a pretty cool thing. And y'all, they must have made 50 or more sprites for us before we sent them one of the Sedimite evolutions that we needed a sprite for. And they sent back, oh my gosh, that's Sedimite. I love Sedimite. Sedimite is more known than me. So as much as you all have tried to get me to hate Sedimite, I still have to put it second because its influence is undeniable. It's literally more known than me. But first place has to go to the Distant Evil Cosmic Legendary, the focal point of the entire series, the inventor of the corrupted form, the creator of the cosmic type, the villainous force that threatens all of existence. The fan game literally cannot exist without it, so of course to me, it's the most important Pokemon I've ever made. And that's gonna do it for my ranking of every single custom Pokemon ever. But now I want to see what your list looks like. So make sure to drop in the comments your top 10 favorite custom Pokemon ever, because I'm sure we disagree and I would love to see all your different answers. As always, huge thank you to the numerous artists that worked on these Pokemon. They can all be found in the description, so make sure to go check them out. And I'll see you all in the next video, but until then, peace.